17, I was in a lesson at school and I saw a girl over the other side of the classroom roll up her sleeves, and as she did, she revealed all these cuts and scratches up her arms, and I remember that I couldn't stop looking at her and thinking, why has she got all these cuts? Like, what's happened to her? And I really didn't know what to do or say. And so I decided not to do or say anything because I thought she probably wouldn't want to talk about it. And you know, I really regret not talking to her. I've been receiving questions from some of you recently about self-harm, and I've seen it mentioned loads in the news, and so I thought perhaps it's about time we took a look at this subject. So I am here in Norfolk today. It's absolutely beautiful, and I'm with James and Sparky, and we're off to meet Rachel, who's the director of Self-Harm UK. We're going to go and have a bit of a chat with her, and I have heard that she's got bacon sandwiches for us, which we're a little bit excited about. Okay, we're at Rachel's house. We're going to go see her. Having bacon sandwiches? Yes? Yeah. Shall I get the coffee cups? Rachel, thank you so much for letting us come and invade your house.
Pleasure.
Thank you for making us bacon sandwiches and coffee. It's been lovely. So I want to learn as much as possible about self-harm, I think, because I'm receiving questions about it and I'm seeing it in the news and on social media, and I want to understand a bit more what actually is self-harm.
So I always describe self-harm as being a physical response to an emotional pain of some description. So it's a behaviour or action or habit that you do at a time when you're not feeling happy, or you're feeling stressed, or you're feeling frustrated, or your self-esteem is very low.
So self-harm isn't just cutting?
No, not at all. Self-harm can be one of many, many, many different types of behaviours. And there's a lot of people out there who are self-harming who don't even necessarily recognise that they're self-harming because of this myth that self-harm is just cutting.
How did you get involved in all of this?
I personally experienced self-harm, or the need to self-harm, for 10 years. From my sort of early teens right through into my 20s. So I understand the secrecy. I understand how overwhelming self-harm can be. I understand how it completely alters your identity, and it radically damages the way that you view yourself. And the longer that self-harm is part of your life, the bigger the impact that it begins to have.
So you're saying that you start to see yourself as just the self-harmer?
Completely. It totally and utterly begins to be how you define yourself. When you're in that place of self-harm, actually the first thing you think of is, I'm just this useless person, or I'm just self-harm. Like, that's all that you can see. You can't see all the other things that you are. The young people that are going through this are so much more than their self-harm. They're so much more than their self-harm.
If there's anyone watching this film who is self-harming at the moment, or is really struggling with life and feelings and emotions, what advice would you give them?
The best piece of advice I could give someone is to tell someone. And it doesn't matter if they don't necessarily understand. They just need to be willing to listen to you and to walk with you. But doing this by yourself is tough. It's really, really tough, and it is so important that you find somebody to tell. And if you don't know how to tell somebody, then get in touch with us. If you self-harm in response to feeling really angry and frustrated, you're going to have a lot of pent-up energy in those moments. A real physical release is going to be helpful. So whether that's running or trampolining or jumping or whatever, doing something that's physical is going to help meet that need, rather than, say, sitting down and doing some colouring in or something, which actually would be helpful for somebody who perhaps self-harms when they're feeling a bit disconnected from the world or in need of some kind of distraction.
Can you recover from self-harm?
Yes, you can. It's not an easy process. I think it can be a real uphill walk for a lot of people, and I think sometimes people get discouraged about recovering because they assume that recovery means that life is going to be perfect and that you're never going to feel stressed and you're never going to feel badly about yourself, that you're never going to have a bad day, that things aren't going to upset you anymore, and that's not reality because that's not how real life works. But recovery is always possible, and even when you're in the darkest of place, that's the thing that you have to hold on to, is that it can get better than this. But walking it with other people makes a huge difference, and so maybe the first step for someone is just being brave enough to tell somebody that it's happening at all, really. But it's really important that anyone who is in the darkness of self-harm understands that there is absolute light and hope at the end of that path if they just keep on walking it. And not losing hope is the most important thing, and that's the key to finding a way back and a place of recovery, is the not giving up.
Rachel, thank you so much for being so honest and letting me ask all my questions and quiz you. I really appreciate all your answers and just helping us to get our head around this subject of self-harm.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad you came.
So we just had a really great time with Rachel, and she suggested that we go and meet with Tasha and chat with her about her experiences with self-harm. So we're just on our way to meet her now. This is James and this is Sparky.
Hi,
Oh, it's chilly.
It's freezing.
Should we go find some place to chat? Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. So I've just met with Rachel from Self-Harm UK because I'm trying to learn as much as possible about self-harm, and she said this is something that you faced. Would you mind sharing your story with us?
I think I was about 13 when it all first started. I didn't really know what self-harm was. For me, when I self-harm, it's about letting that inner scream out.
How do you feel after you've harmed yourself?
I regret it a lot, and it's not worth it. I just feel it hurts and I just feel awful.
You said self-harm is not worth it. What do you mean?
It still sometimes doesn't take away that inner scream. It's just an instant thing to do. It doesn't go away. It's the depression is still there, and now all you've got is a bleeding wrist or sick in the toilet or on the floor. I realised this quite quickly when I left uni, that you don't know who your real friends are till you're in your darkest place, and they're the ones sticking by you going, I don't understand it, but I'm going to help you. And I found it more helpful when someone actually hasn't been through it to talk to, because especially when I've hung out with people who've self-harmed or have got mental health problems, we get each other down a lot. And sometimes you need someone that hasn't been through it, but will still sit there and be like, I don't understand it, but I'm going to sit here and try and understand it. I'll research it and I'll just listen to you. And that's another thing, listening is something that I love people doing. So a lot of people just want to just give answers, and when I don't need that sometimes, especially when I'm in my dark place. I don't need answers, I need someone just to talk to.
So if there is someone who is watching this that knows someone that's self-harming, how can they support that young person? How can they care for them and help them in their journey?
So I would advise them to just be there for their friend. Even though they don't understand, just be there. You don't have to understand. Just listen to them, why they self-harming, ask them, just be the friend they need.
So do you feel like you've gradually progressed?
Yeah, I feel like I have. I'm definitely not the 13-year-old Tasha, but I do have a hope for all self-harmers that we all together will get over this struggle. That even though we will have these scars to remind us we may have been broken, but we're not anymore. We will all make it through, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We will break through this depression and self-harm. And I'll stand and be like, do you know what, I got through my struggle. I got through it.
Tasha, thank you so much for coming and meeting with us and sharing your story and your experiences. I really appreciate you being so honest with us.
No, just thank you for letting me just share my story.
Wow, it's been an amazing day. I feel like I've learnt so much stuff. I hope you do too. I think the main things I've learnt are that self-harm is often something that's done, something physical to try and make sense of and cope with an emotional pain. We've heard the importance of telling someone what's going on and how you're feeling, even if they don't understand, that it's really important not to shut yourself away and be alone in this, but to walk with others and to allow people to help you. We've heard that actually you shouldn't define yourself by the self-harm. Self-harm is not who you are. It's a really tiny part of you, and you are so much more than that. And I think the great thing that we've heard is that there is hope in all of this, that you can move forward, and very often you are a lot stronger than you think you are. Hopefully you feel like you know a lot more about self-harm. I know I do. If you want more information, then there are links below, but I think it's time to go home.